fact, if he wakes up, we're gone. And he doesn't disappear, even if he wakes up, because he really exists. We exist only in his mind. But it's not the same. Don't compare it. That's the best way to understand it. What does that mean? That means, in a certain way, the only one who really exists is if you are existence. If you've got to be given existence, it's not the same. Relative to God, there is nothing else. In fact, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to penetrate that mystery. How can I, Moshe Rabbeinu, talk to you, God, and not exist? What does that mean? And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Hareinu nos kavodecha. Moshe Rabbeinu, after the sin of the golden calf, asked the two greatest questions of all time. Moshe Rabbeinu knew exactly what to ask. I've got to hand it to this person. He knew it. He knew the opportunities, and he knew exactly what to ask. The two greatest questions of all is what? Is God, show me your ways. Because everything that happens ultimately is because of you. What determines what you do? Why do you do what you do? So that was the first thing that Moshe Rabbeinu asked. What determines why you do things? Show me your ways. And then Moshe Rabbeinu got a little brave and he said, show me your glory. Who are you? What do you mean, who are you? What does that mean? It means, I know who you are. There's nothing but you. How? I'm talking to you. How do you do it? And so on. And God said, no man can see me and live, which means you cannot penetrate that mystery, obviously, whatever, but I can show you things and so on, which is really complex and so on. But in essence, that's what it is. What does that mean? Now, so a guy can say, you know, if we don't really exist, it's no problem. I'm going to go outside, sit on Broadway, right in the middle of the street, right? And what's there to be afraid of? Because that non-existent car, it doesn't exist, so what's the problem here? But here's the problem. That non-existent car will kill your non-existent being. That's the problem. Because relative to each other, that non-existent thing could kill your the non-existent being, and so on. And that's the way it's set up. But this is the reality. It's a profound understanding that ultimately speaking, since God is being, He is the only thing that is. It's like the guy on the couch. We in some way have an existence, but it's not the same. Relative to God, it's like relative to the guy sleeping, there's no such, the guys in his dream don't exist really. It's just a mental image. The same kind of metaphor that I would describe. What does that mean? That means that God, putting free will aside for a minute, that God is so close to us, that He is so everywhere, He is so everything, that it's almost incredible what He could do. And let me tell you something, and this is good, it's a practical idea. Rabbi brings this down. This is a segula. You know what a segula is? A segula is segula. Give me a translation.
A charm. A charm.
A what? No. Let me capture that word. It's a segula means that it's a way of, it's an aid. It's a device that will help you. Okay. Let me give you a capture example, and this one stay. Rabbi says the following, that if somebody looks at a person that is about to harm him, and he says, wait a minute, you don't exist really. I understand that you want to harm me, you exist relative to me, but you don't exist independent. You're a complete emergence of God. That guy is God about to hit you, because he has no power by himself. Nobody can exist into the next nanosecond. You can't exist independent. That means if God doesn't will you to be, you will instantly cease to exist in the next instant of time. So then how can somebody even harm you? He doesn't really exist by himself. So therefore God has to give him existence by nanosecond for him to harm you. So Rabbi says an incredible thing that he says, if you look at the sky and you realize that insight, that there is no enemy, there is no independent force in all creation but God, the harm will go away. It's interesting. In other words, it's almost like, aha, it's you. And I see that also if somebody, has disease or whatever, I'm not saying not to take medicine and all that, but a person, this would help him greatly if you meditate. Let's say somebody, God forbid, has cancer or whatever. There is no such thing in this year, what I'm saying. There is relative to us. But that cancer is God. There's no such thing as an independent being. Listen. There's no such thing as an independent being that exists independent of God. It's just that God creates that cancer and He's the force behind it. If God would stop the will of that, it would instantly vanish. It has no ability to exist in its own. So it's a tremendous figura, which is what Chaim Volozhin says, that if a person has a disease or anything, let him go and sit down and meditate. What is the meditation? That there is nothing independent of God, nothing. Bacteria or viruses or tumors or anything, or enemies, anything, it's all God in the end. And he brings out that this is a tremendous figura, and somebody, I once used it, and it worked. It's interesting. I don't go into the story about it, but I remember this, and all of a sudden I was mechaven, whatever was bothering me disappeared. Whatever it is, I'm just saying this is a practical idea that comes out of this hashkafa. Great. Okay. What have I done? I have gone extensively into the concept of who is God. I have shown you that the concept of one is profound, that it requires a lot of effort to understand. It is a true struggle. But when you finish, you have a knowledge which most people do not have, which you can actually use. You can use it in terms of prayer, because you're not praying to somebody out there that's got a list of you. It's within you, and so on. It's in terms of the practicality, there's a great deal more that is spoken, but obviously I'm going to stop and so on. But think about these ideas. These ideas are, most people do not have an understanding at this level. The Romchal, he spent a lifetime trying to reveal this information. And this ultimately is the idea of who is the God of the Jews, the God of the universe. This is who God is. Thank you. Any questions, and then I'll stop. Yes? Well, the Romchal, the concepts of the Romchal are from Kabbalah. That's where it's from. And I can, in a shear, show you, but it's way out of the way. It's another shear. What?
The thing bothering you that you made disappear, was that a person?
Say that again?
The thing bothering you that you made disappear, was that a person?
It was a kidney stone. Wasn't a person.
This would explain why anger would be like the Buddha's arrow.
It was incredible. And I just thought about it. What? I didn't know. It was terrible, and then I remembered Segula, and I just, in the midst of all that pain, I just stopped a minute. I said, there is no such thing as a kidney stone. It's a rubbish road. Except he is now in a form, so to speak, not literally, but in the kidney stone, and recognized that, and it was gone the next minute. It was astounding. I'm not saying medicine, don't get me wrong, I'm not a doctor. I'm just showing you the concepts of what Chaim Volozhin says, and he's the one who said, and that's why I thought about it, and so on.
So
anyway.
It can be a reverse feature that if someone doesn't do that, it's also can do that.
Say it again?
There's also a reverse.
What's the reverse?
Saying like you're saying that you just seen it there, you're saying it's part of God, so really it's not going to harm you.
No, I didn't meditate that it was not going to harm me. That's not. You have to see you have to see the reality of what that is. That you see, here's what it is, and it's part of a. You give force, you give power to a force if you believe that force is independent of God. It's a very important idea. God always reacts to what you believe in. If you believe that that person has power, you actually give him power, because what God says, okay, you believe he's a force on his own, hey, you contend with him. But who's the guy, who's the one after you? It's God. But you give, your belief can create an enemy. This is what the power of a person's mind.
Can you believe create a friend?
What?
Can you believe create a being that's not negative?
I probably can, yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm looking at
This is
negative
one of the
side.
ways that God created us to be like Him. This is how
Yes.
we can create like Him. You can create whatever you want.
I just wanted to thank Rabbi Kessin. It was wonderful. Really, I've had you speak here before, but I wasn't around. It was
Yeah, I go back with Shlomo.
yeah, but even more recently that I wasn't able to attend.
You know, I actually used to give a shir
years ago.
in 1987. Yeah. Anyway.
Only 23 years ago.
Yeah, Shlomo was around. Anyway, yeah, shot.
And so what we're going to do, I just want to.